Hello, everyone. This is a very special night. 40 years ago in the town of Ansonia, something magical happened. The 1983 Ansonia Chargers did something that never had been done in Ansonia. They finished number one in the state, finished the season 11-0. And today we're here to talk with some of those members of the team who had a big impact in that great season. And it is my honor to introduce to you, first off, quarterback Jeff Capola, who you can't see at the moment, but he's there. Hello, Jeff. Thank you for coming on. Okay. Running back Earl Stanley, who was a 2-year starter for Ansonia and a member of 3 state championships. Earl, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Nice to be on.
2-way starter and all-state player, John Lawler, who was also a captain of that 83 team. And John, I want to thank you for giving us.
Thanks, Mike.
And then, of course, another 2-way player, Timmy Ahern, who was also all-state and would attend Yale. So, guys, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor. And and there's
Hey,
Jeff.
there he is.
Again, I'm going to introduce Jeff because I don't think he heard me the last time. This, of course, was the quarterback of that great state championship team, Jeffrey Capola. So, Jeff, thank you for giving us some time today. It's a real honor.
Thank you, Mike. Oh, I enjoy everything that you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So, Jeff, I'm actually going to start with you because you came into a situation where I think there was a lot of pressure because this team had just come off back-to-back state championships. You're a sophomore at the time, and you're the quarterback. Was there a lot of pressure going into spring practice that year?
Spring practice, yeah, I would say yes, because we, believe it or not, we didn't look too good in spring practice. I remember going in, if you guys remember going into the locker room after our spring game, it wasn't a great, it wasn't a joyous locker room. We struggled that day because we had, obviously the year before had great class. Gordy Hotchkiss, Terry Antrim, and John Druskowski, Sean Rod, all that group. And they came back, their quarterback, Rich Fiducia, he left, so we really didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have a quarterback in their senior class. So it was up for grabs. He lost 2 out of the 3 running backs. So we lost quite a bit. So it was, I don't know how the expectations were, but as far as me, nervous, yeah, but I being with the group, we had good leadership, great senior class. So it was, that's why we were so successful. So it was, I would say I was nervous a little bit, but with these guys, it took the ease off a little bit.
Right. So John and Tim, I'll ask you guys both this, both elected captain, and going into senior year, you had won back-to-back state titles. So, I mean, obviously one of your goals was to win another state title. And it's hard for me to think that you guys, there was a goal to finish number one, because when people are voting on who's going to finish number one, you can't control that. All you could do is go out there and be successful and play the games. You can't really control the polls. But the other thing I'm sure that was an expectation for you guys was to beat Naugatuck, because you'd gone 2 years without doing that. So what was your mindset going into the 1983 season?
I'll take it first. Mike, the Naugatuck game was first and foremost on our mind. As you mentioned, in 81 and 82, that was the only 2 losses that our class had encountered in football from freshman through senior year. So that was our goal. Obviously, getting through the NVL, getting to Thanksgiving, and then beating Naugatuck and moving on from there.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with John wholeheartedly. It was interesting you asked if we expected we had a goal of being number one. I'll be flat honest with you, no, we didn't. But that doesn't say that we didn't want to be. And I would think all the classes before us would answer the same way, right? That wasn't the goal, is to win all the games. The chips will fall where they may, right? If you remember, we lucked out big time in that the night before our game, I think it was East Catholic, took down Hand, who at the time was number one. So, that was a great opportunity for us to wake up. And we answered the bell, obviously, right? We had a really good game. Lights had a phenomenal game. Derek Abbott's had a phenomenal game. I mean, everyone else did as well. But we truly lucked out. But I don't think, and I can speak for me. I guess I can speak for the team. But we didn't set goals like that to be number one. Our goal is to win every game, and then figure it out from there. And you guys are right. We had glasses before us. I mean, each of us sit here now. We're standing. We stood on the shoulders of everyone before us. Right? There were some great teams before us, and you can go back really far if you can think that far. There's a tremendous amount of talent that's come through the high school. And the class before us, they were loaded. I agree with Jeff right off the bat. We were shaky right off the bat. And quite frankly, there was a handful of us that, were returners, and the rest was made up. But we beyond, I mean, John, myself, and Earl and Glenn and, Doyle's and the rest of them, we had a good senior class, but boy, we got helped by every single class in the school at that time. I mean, Lights, my brother Pat, and Terry Mack, those guys are all sophomores, playing like seniors. We had juniors who, quite frankly, there's some guys on that team that had it not been for some of us, they'd be starters on any other team.
Yeah.
But, so we weren't deep, but we had some really talented people. And I think, Lights was hitting on it earlier. We were just a good group of guys that got along. So it really helped. I mean, when Lights came on, it wasn't like, okay, here comes a sophomore. It was like, oh, here's Lights. Let's go. I mean, we knew he was capable of doing all he did. It wasn't a surprise to us what Jeff did. But, I mean, it was truly – everybody would helped out every single step of the way, everybody out there. And, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that, there's guys who get their names in the paper and they get the accolades, but there's a tremendous amount of people who had to be in practice with us, because otherwise, if we couldn't practice with them, we wouldn't have got the reps that we got. And we had some really tough sons of guns who sat in with us every day at practice. And, it wasn't for them, it wouldn't be there. Matter of fact, some of those guys were tougher than some of the guys we played. And so we really benefit from it. And it goes right to the top of the leadership. We had some tremendous coaching with a lot of discipline, a lot of rigor, rules. I mean, we were really lucky by the folks who, taught us how. That's really part of our strength was the coaching we received and the leadership we got. And the community, you guys know this. We had a lot of support from our community.
Yes.
We would go to teams on the away games, and we always had more people than the home team. It was amazing. I mean, we didn't figure it out then, but later on you look back and say, oh my God, we always had more people in the stands than the home team. It was an incredible support staff that we had around us, and it was incredible support we received from the community. It worked out really well.
Right. So, Earl, let me ask you, because the season before, you had been in that backfield. I think you scored over 10 touchdowns that year. You were on a state championship team, as these guys were. But now, was there pressure to have an even better season, which is kind of hard to ask of you when you're scoring over 10 touchdowns? That's one a game. But, I mean, did you feel a lot of pressure to perform even better than the year before?
No, there wasn't much pressure on us at all. I mean, we had I think, a very good backfield. Ellis Ings was the right halfback. Derek Abbott's, was the fullback. But I knew going into the game, going into the season, the way the system we had, I was going to carry the ball most of the time. So I had to be prepared, be in shape, and, ready to carry the ball most of the time, because, we did run the ball often. But, like I said, we had, like Tim said, we had sophomores, juniors, seniors. They all made a contribution to, the success we had there. I mean, our defense that year, I mean, those guys, some of the guys on the bench, like Timmy said, they could have been playing if it wasn't for a few of us.
Yeah.
That team was loaded. I thought we were loaded.
Right. And John, it's hard to believe, because I've got 4 of you here today, and you guys have had so much success during your Ansonia careers. And then I'm not even talking about the guys that are not here that had success. And I mean, that's what I look at that 83 team, is that everybody that played the field on that team was as talented as anybody in the state. There were no matter who it was that you guys put in there, somebody made a contribution, like Earl said. And that's really why I believe you guys dominated that year, because there was there wasn't one weak player on that field.
That's absolutely right. Going from top to bottom, as Earl and Tim said, there were reserves that could have been starters on that team. And when their name was called to come in, we didn't miss a beat. So, it was a terrific team. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, Jeff, let me ask you, talk about the first game because you guys did very well. I mean, you had a great game, but I mean, was it important for you to get that first game out of the way to build your confidence throughout the season?
Holy Cross, correct? 27-0, something like that, I believe.
Right.
I think Andy Scott blocked the punt. I do remember, and I didn't even have to look this up. I do remember my first pass. It was, they called the 27 power pass, and obviously we had one of the greatest receivers ever to come out of the state in Glennie Antrim, who was a neighbor of mine, and he was, I was a sophomore, so my arm wasn't as strong as it was my senior year, so I had to make sure I had to get the ball to him, and we did a 27 power pass, and I faked it and then threw it right away. I probably threw it 30 yards over his head because I didn't even get him a chance. But my first pass was incomplete by about 30 yards because I was a little nervous and it was Glennie, and I didn't want to, underthrow him like I did quite a bit because, Glennie was obviously fast. And but I tell you, it's sophomore, you got to realize, like Glennie Antrim I grew up with. So I played with Glennie every day. Earl, I played Little League with. Timmy and John went to Assumption School together. So everything, and like these guys said, the leadership, and I don't know how other teams are, no hazing, nobody feeling uncomfortable. So that makes a big difference in Ansonia, and it still stays that way now. Maybe it's the leadership of top, from the coaches to the captains they pick, just the environment. It's just a great environment where it's tough not to feel part of it. Even if you're a sophomore coming in, taking the first snap, you feel like you're part of it. You're the guy. So as far as being nervous and not being, part of anything, or it's the atmosphere. I mean, and obviously it's been going on for 50 years. It's not a mistake. It's what's been going on since the 70s. I mean, these guys are my brother and Sandy Oshesky and all those guys going back to the 70s. There were some great teams that we used to watch as kids, not get the chance that we got, to be number one in the state. And I think we had a couple, probably 2 or 3 undefeated teams before us that didn't get the respect and didn't get the option or the opportunity to be number one. So, yeah, but so as far as being nervous or anything, not with this kind of leadership. No, you just felt like you were part of the team, and we just went from there.
So guys, let me ask you also, because back then as well, I mean, Ansonia Football was the talk of that town all the time, and it still is to a degree today. But back then, I mean, people loved going to high school football games, especially in the Valley, and Ansonia and Derby both. I mean, those factory workers would leave their jobs and they would, get pumped up for Saturday games, whether it was Ansonia playing or Derby playing. And it's almost like you felt like rock stars back then because, I mean, the whole town just was watching you guys. And I think Earl said this earlier, the place was packed all the time. So just talk about what that feeling was like going on the field every Saturday. Anyone?
Yeah, it was a tremendous feeling. We knew back then that when we took the field, we were looking at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fans for Holy Cross, for the Waterbury teams, and then when you get to Derby and Naugatuck, in Torrington, you're looking at 8, 9, 10,000 fans. Nowadays people have different priorities, and things have changed, and it's not like it used to be. But I'm certainly glad that I was able to experience the fans back then?
Well, we all had relatives or close relatives or brothers, sisters that come through the program. So, when you're ready to go, come out that locker room at Ansonia Football, you were like, wow, this is what it's all about. And, ever since you're a kid in Pop Warner, that's what you think about. Hey, I'm going to go up to the high school and I'm going to accomplish some goals, team goals as winning state championships. And that's, that was our goal all along. I mean, the 3 years that we all played together, the goal is to win the state championship. And I'm sure when Lights' last 2 years there, the goal at Ansonia is every year win the state championship. Just like our cousins and brothers and all the relatives that we have come through this program, that was the goal. Win state championships. And, right now, as far as the state, we've done it better than any program in the state of Connecticut. And we believe we have 22.
Right, exactly. Tim, talk to me a little bit about Coach McAllister, legendary coach, but he could be intense as well, and he expected a lot from you guys. Just talk to me about the impact he had on the Ansonia program, because really it starts with Jarvis. I also think a guy like Willis Bub Green deserves a lot of credit for just like his love for Ansonia and getting kids involved in the KO club and stuff. And then, you talk about, Coach McAllister, Lisi, Hunt, Brockett, but just talk about Coach McAllister's impact.
We could sit here all night and talk about Coach Mac, but we probably couldn't get it all out, right? What he meant to us as individuals, what he meant to the team, what he meant to the town. What sticks out most to me is he's a class individual. He didn't say a lot, but you knew when you screwed up.
Yeah.
But he didn't berate you. He was more apt to kind of encourage you a little stronger than he had earlier, because maybe you didn't get it. But an incredible disciplinarian and quite frankly, a gentleman. And he's the kind of guy that he was soft-spoken for the most part, but when he spoke, you were locked on. You could hear everything when he spoke. You locked on, you absorbed what he said, you followed what he said, and obviously it worked. But as a person, he was a really good guy. And everybody throws the word mentor around today, and he's a mentor for kids. Forget the football team. He mentored guys throughout the high school in his capacity as an educator. But I mean, what a tremendous person. And we were beyond lucky to have him leading our entire program, right? The buck stopped with him on everything. He was unbelievable in terms of how he got us to perform. I mean, quite frankly, I'll just speak for John and I, but John and I, unfortunately, for whatever reason, we weren't able to play in the Pop Warner system. We grew a little bit. We didn't get to that. But I got to tell you, it probably didn't matter, maybe even help. But when we got up to the high school, we got the best coaching that we thought was available. And believe me, we didn't have 3 or 4 years on our belt, but they made us come up to speed pretty quickly. We had Coach Calandro as a freshman coach, along with Coach Sponheimer. Jeff Kirpus came back from wherever he was, and he helped out. Mark Gumas. There were guys who always wanted to contribute to it. So we were really lucky to have the leadership that we had from Coach Mack down, and then all the other assistants who joined along the way. But again, we could have a whole segment on Coach Mack alone, but just a tremendous person, a tremendous leader. And believe me, he wanted to win probably sometimes worse than we did. There were times that, I mean, I could tell you, he could probably coach now. The fire in his belly, and the passion and compassion he had, unparalleled. And I played for a great coach in college. I looked at those guys in the same way. They truly were winners. They wanted to win, but they were incredible leaders, which, I mean, Lights said it. We were a little scrambled coming in early. We kind of, we lost a tremendous bunch of talent. And somehow through Coach Mack's leadership, he wasn't making excuses. He wasn't going to say it's okay to have a down year. We always tell ourselves we're having a rebuilding year. But believe me, the fire in his gut was the same as it was probably the 10 years before that, or 15, whatever it was. And he made us into the people we were. And we couldn't thank them enough. But I can tell you, if you ever want to spend the night just Coach Mac talk, you probably could fill up the whole segment.
Yeah. And Jeff and Earl, Tim just brought this up a couple of minutes ago. And I think it is a big reason why Ansonia has had the foundation of success it's had for over 50 years now. And that's the Pop Warner program. So just talk a little bit about how important Pop Warner was, especially when you guys were there, because I just feel like they've really set the standard to what Ansonia would become, because it starts in Pop Warner.
I had the opportunity to play under the Phipps brothers, and they're the Dennis, Bill,
Eddie,
yeah,
Brian.
Brian Phipps, yep, the Phipps brothers. They were my coaches in Pop Warner, and we were off fundamentally sound every day at practice. I mean, it seems like, you did the same thing over and over and over again, but that's what you learn in Pop Warner. You learn the fundamentals. Nowadays, too many people worry about the W's and the L's.
Right.
The Phipps brothers, they wanted to win, just like the kids, but they taught you from your stance every day to the quarterback having the right technique, the center making sure he's stepping when he's snapping the ball, or the tackle stepping with his left foot, or the tackle stepping to the right foot, or the running back, make sure you have your right hand up. They started right from the beginning, and that carried all the way through the Pop Warner system. And I played 2 years for the Phipps brothers, and then I played 1 year at 8th grade because I had as Timmy said, I got a little bigger as well, and I didn't make the weight limit. So I was only able to play 1 year as on the midget team. But we had good coaches there, very good coaches.
Right. And John, a big game for you guys during the season, which is kind of, foolish of me to say a big game because it's always a big game. But I know first and foremost, the goal is to beat Derby because it was a huge rivalry back then. And although you guys won the game 19-13 and people expected you to beat them by a lot, I never looked at you guys took Derby lightly or you guys didn't come ready to play that day. I just think that when you're playing a team like Derby, you have to expect it's going to be a battle. And I really felt that was a turning point for the 83 Chargers because that was a big game and you guys won that game. And even though Derby stayed in the game, you guys still pulled it out. So I never looked at that as, oh, they took Derby lightly or anything. I thought that was probably the most important win of the season.
Every year that we played them, Derby was a tremendous team. They always came prepared, and they, back then they were the same as Ansonia. The kids were the same. They were competitive. At the time, Jeff Rice was the big running back in Derby, and he was a monster. And Coach DeCenzo prepared those kids really well for Ansonia. And we knew every year playing Derby that it was going to be a battle. And who knows who was going to win. But we were fortunate through our career to be able to beat Derby every time we played them.
Yeah. And
John hit the nail right in the head. I mean, those guys came, they were well coached and they were incredibly prepared. And I got to tell you, they really handed it to us that day. We had a couple
They sure did.
Really,
Especially
Andy
me.
Scott had a tremendous football game that day. But I got to tell you, you also were correct. That game was the pivotal point of our season. And I could bring it down to one single play. Glenn made a shoestring catch.
Yep.
Hit the whole on the Derby sideline, and they were bananas.
He did catch it.
Well, it was the catch of the season for us. Had we not won that game, we'd have been in trouble, obviously. But that was the turning point of our season right there. And I'll tell you, Derby gave us the wake-up call of wake-up calls. And they had some tough son of a guns. Ronnie Linnell, I probably hit him 10 times that day. He was the fullback. He came out, and they were loaded. Greg Linder, John Dorsch, Marco Rumbin. They had a ton of people on that team. I'm not sure what happened in the earlier part of their season, but the team that had that record coming into our game, that's not the team we played.
That was not a 6-4 team.
No.
I'll tell you that right now. If they
Those
played
guys
the whole
tough.
season like they played against us,
Yeah.
we might have played them again for a second time.
That was a tremendous game, and it was certainly the pivotal point of our season.
And let me ask you guys, I always think about this, and you guys, not Jeff, but the three of you guys had to play Derby twice in 1982. And I've said this to Coach Sponheimer many times. Playing, as coaches, you can't win no matter what, because you're expected to win. They want you to, beat Derby. Then you got to play them a second time. And it's almost like you're in a no-win situation, because, preparing for them once is tough. Then preparing for them twice is almost impossible. And how is it for you guys as players? I mean, I'm sure as young kids, you wanted to play them again. You embraced it. But I mean, was there a lot of stress to have to play them twice in 1 year?
Quite frankly, Mike, when it was announced that we were playing them, I didn't want to play them. They were good. They were really good, and it was going to be a challenge. But we strapped it on, and we were able to come out on top. And by all means, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
That was a difficult game there. That was down there in Trumbull. And, that team, that Derby team, was very talented as well. They had Joe Sadik was on that team, Pete Snow. That team was very talented. Yep, Bart. Yep, Ronnie Bart playing tackle. The guy could play. Yep. So that team was pretty good. I think Jimmy Steffen was the running back, and Pucci. Was Pucci the quarterback there, Nietzsche?
Not that team.
The year before that.
Year before that, right?
The quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that team, that team gave us all we could handle.
Right.
I don't think anybody wanted to say, yes, you pick the names out, take a name out of the hat and say, oh, yeah, we want to play Derby again. No, the only way I wanted to play Derby again is if they had beaten us, and then we get another crack at them.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jeff, let me ask you this. After the Derby, at this point, you guys are 6-0, and you've gotten 6 games under your belt as a varsity quarterback. Did you feel comfortable in that role by then? I mean, were you confident that you would finish the season strong?
Honestly, I don't know. Again, when I didn't feel any pressure, like I said, the first snap of the year, I felt pressure, when I just not to underthrow Glennie. But as far as playing with that, I didn't do much myself. I just handed the ball off, ran some options, and threw to wide open receivers. I was lucky. I was surrounded by talented senior class and a talented junior class, and you throw in 2 sophomore wide receivers who are lucky enough to graduate with and play my senior year in Pat Ahern and Terry McNamara. They gave me the keys to a Ferrari, and I just drove it. I really didn't. Even against Naugatuck, I got a 64-yard touch. They were keying on Earl, so I put it in the belly, and then I just had to sprint. So I just had to do my part, but I was very lucky to be surrounded by talented group, and very deep. 2 tight ends, John Waller and John Hunt as your tight ends. Good luck. Good luck to any safety coming up want to tackle those guys. But if I can get back one thing about Coach Mack, and we were moving some boxes, and I picked up an article and read something. This comes back to the character of Coach Mack. And I read something I didn't notice until I read it. He was thinking about leaving, and I don't know if you guys remember or if you heard it, the year before. And he knew coming back, he lost quite a bit, and he didn't want to leave any coach with what was uncertain. Certainly not going to be, he didn't know what kind of team it was going to be, and he didn't want to leave a team that wasn't going to be loaded, it wasn't going to be successful. Not that he didn't have, confidence in what was coming, but we did lose quite a bit. So I'm so glad he stayed the next year, and it paid off for him, and it paid off for us, thankfully. And as a sophomore, I had his last year, and this this is his last class right here. John, Timmy, Earl, Glennie, and this Andy Scott. That group was Coach Mack's last group, and it could have been, the year before, but he did stay on, and thank God for us. But again, it just shows you what kind of your man and character that he had, and how much he cared about what he was going to leave to somebody.
Right.
Yep.
Guys, one of the things about the 83 team as well is a lot of these games then were over by the half. You guys were just, dominating all season. And I think that in a lot of ways, that helped you guys a lot too, because it injuries always happen throughout the season, but it kept you guys fresh and it kept you guys strong because you were able to be out of there by the middle of the third quarter. So you're not playing a full football game like you would, if you're in a battle with somebody. So I really think that was an important part too. And people don't realize that, if you have that chance to, put the game away early, you do it because one, you're saving your starters from injuries, and two, you're keeping them well rested. And I really think that played a big, important role in, the success of your season.
It did. And I'll give you two other reasons that it benefited us. Not only did we get to rest, but there were younger guys who got a tremendous amount of reps.
Mm-hmm.
So to Light's point, right? Light came as a sophomore. That's, incredible what he did. But there were other guys who got reps, game reps. So by the time they hit their junior and senior year, they were game ready. These guys had seen the field. The other interesting part of that, and talking to Coach Mack's character, and you guys maybe disagree or agree with me, but honest to goodness, complacency was definitely not something that you could say about us, something that we had. Coach Mack, no matter who our opponent was, no matter what their record was, made sure that we knew going into that game that they definitely could beat us. We could beat them. So there were teams who, at the end of the game, you'd say, oh my God, that wasn't much of a team. But I could tell you, when we went into the game, that wasn't our mindset. Our mindset was we better get our A game on and put this team away as quickly as we can. Not because we wanted to be sitting at halftime. We didn't. We wanted to play. But because he had us convinced that it was possible that this team that we probably thought wasn't as good as we were had a chance. So that's why we had some of those lopsided scores we do in the first half. Is Coach Mack put it in our heads that we better play our tails off. And by the way, if you didn't, he'd pull you out, put somebody else in. So
And we were always well prepared, though. We were well prepared for every opponent.
Absolutely.
And some of those teams we play, Torrington, I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong, John and guys, I think we only played 4 full games our senior year. The rest of them, our mentality was go out there and play the best we could play. Whatever score it is, that's what it is. They'll make the decision at halftime. And most of the time at halftime, we were packing it in. We beat on a couple of the good teams. That Shelton team, we beat that Shelton team 42-0. We were on the bench at halftime. That was a good Shelton team.
Sure.
And like I said, we played 4 full games as seniors.
Right. So let's talk about the Naugatuck game, because of course, like I said earlier, that was the only team that was the one thing you guys had not accomplished yet, was beating Naugatuck. And, I think about that 81 game, and it looked like early on Ansonia was going to run away with that, and then Naugatuck just came out of nowhere in the second half. So I know, that was 2 straight frustrating losses for you guys. So I know in the back of your minds, you had that game, as early as probably January in 1983, thinking about that team. But you guys had to play them in Naugatuck, and I really thought that was another big key to your season, is you had to go on the road to finally end. Not that it was a long winning streak, but for you guys, you had not had a victory against them yet, and you had to go in their house and do it. So that had to make it even that much sweeter. But just talk about that game, and any one of you could, chime in on this.
I got to tell you, I don't remember a lot about the game. When you get so locked in, sometimes you just kind of forget the rest and you just go. But your point is valid. It was certainly in our minds. We certainly lived through the 2 previous years. So, we definitely wanted to go in and do what we could. And believe me, we had a tremendously talented team. And as good as those teams were, I can tell you, we never went into a game thinking we were the underdogs. We were always as confident as you could possibly be that we were going to win the game. And it's not because we were cocky or arrogant. It's just that we were just well coached, well prepared. We knew we were in the best position we could possibly be during that week leading up to it. But I'd be fooling myself if I didn't think that game was kind of weighing heavy on us, given what the 2 previous seasons did. But I got to be honest with you, I don't remember a whole lot about the game.
I thought about that game. I think about it every year and all the years that I've coached up there because I get reminded of it, that I always put that game was on me because we had a chance. I had a chance to intercept the ball, pick it off, and kneel down. The game was over, and that ball went through my hands, and Steve Croach made a clutch catch. And from that day on, that's all I could think about is wanting to get back at Naugatuck. That till this day, Thanksgiving Day, that comes to my mind every single year for the last 40 years or 39 years, whatever it may be. I think about that. And I always said after that game that we got to get Naugatuck once.
Yeah.
We end up, all of us played a great game that day and we got them.
Yeah. And John, I mean, how did it feel to finally have that, off your back? Like, you finally got that win against them, because to me, in a lot of ways, Ansonia's state road to the state championship would have to go through Naugatuck a lot of times. And if you can beat Naugatuck and you have a big battle with them and you beat them, the state championship game kind of almost was anticlimactic because you would pretty much just dominate in those games. So just talk about finally getting that victory against Naugatuck.
That meant a lot. Really, our seasons went through Derby and Naugatuck. Holy Cross was usually the first game of the season, and they normally played us hard. And Torrington just didn't have any respect for us, and we beat them down every year. Winning Naugatuck our senior year really was a highlight after getting beat 2 years in a row. Let's face it, from a senior class standpoint, from freshman to senior, those were the only 2 losses that we had in football, and it didn't sit well for us. And we had one thing on our mind when we met them in '83, and that was we needed to bring it home and then finish off once we get to the state championship.
Yeah. And I mean, for you guys as 17-year-old kids, I mean, that feeling that feeling stays with you forever. And I'm sure every time that you go to a Thanksgiving game, or even if you go to see Ansonia play Derby, you still get that nostalgic feeling when you watch these games, because you remember that and it seems like it was forever, even though it was only for 4 years, but you had that special moment where you got to play as friends, as teammates, and you win games like that. So, I mean, you must that had to be a wonderful time in your lives back to high school playing those games.
It was really wonderful. And when we look back, a lot of us that were on that team were together from grammar school. A lot went Dave McDermott, Jeff, John Glenn, Terry Mack, Pat Ahern. We all went to Assumption School. And then we met up with Earl, Glennie, and Andy when we played basketball with them during Bitter League and those games, and we really became not only competitors but great friends from a young age, and that carried all the way through. We have I would say we have a really special bond.
Yeah. And I mean, Jeff, just let me ask you, as a guy that got to, you're a sophomore, you're still learning. Not that you didn't know the position, but you're still learning to play it on a varsity level. To play with such tremendous players in front of you, I mean, it just had to be like such a great feeling for you as a young kid to be able to play with people like this and win a championship with them.
Mike, like I said, I was the chosen one. I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And again, these are guys that I looked up to. Going to Assumption School, playing basketball, and believe it or not, these two guys, Timmy and John, they can play some hoop too. With Assumption. And so I was in 6th grade playing. They were in 8th grade playing basketball with them, looking up to them, and what smart players they were. Not only on the basketball court, the football on the football field. My first baseball experience was with Jimbo Lindsay and Earl Stanley as my teammate for the Emeralds. So like I said, Glenn Antrim was my my neighbor. So we played every day something. So like I said, I was just it's so, we can say it, Mike, but you really, unless you live it, unless you're part of it, you really can't. And it's especially in high school now, you don't have it, but the Ansonia kids do. And maybe it's because of the coaching staff and what they accept and what they don't accept and how they run their program and how the city accepts it. It's just a special, it's not teams, it's a program. And it's guys looking out after them. I mean, you guys remember, one thing I remember about Naugatuck was, well, the hardest head slap I ever got was Andy Scott coming out for pregame and gave me a head slap, and I saw stars. And secondly, I remember is before the game, the class before that, that class that got beat, the senior class when they were juniors, Terry Antrim and that group coming into the locker room to get us pumped up, and that's, I can't say it because I only played for one school. I don't think you get that much, many other schools, and they still have it to this day, of the friendships and the leadership and just how the quality of kids they got coming through these programs, and it's just special, and I'm just very lucky, and especially as a sophomore, to be very lucky playing with these seniors. I just, all I had to do is not mess it up, and I went for the ride, so I was lucky.
Lights did a great job driving the Ferrari.
100%. Mike,
He did that. He did a great
Lights is very low key about this.
He made great reads.
He
He hit the open man when he was supposed to. Made the great reads on the option. When he kept the ball at the right time, he pitched the ball at the right time. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and more. He had great athleticism. He was a baseball player, basketball player, so he just wasn't a football player. And most of us on that team were not just football players. We are athletes. Yeah. We played multiple sports. Timmy and John, they just as well could have played baseball, but they chose not to. We would have had 7 guys on that team that played 3 sports. You never see that nowadays. Never. You'll see maybe 1 or 2 kids play. But yeah. John
before we get that point, right? Lights is really downplaying it.
Yeah.
Lights was a tremendous athlete, as Earl said.
Yes. Yeah.
Here's a guy, a sophomore, who walked into a huddle he had never been in before. And quite frankly, Lights was clearly a leader on that team.
Yep.
He was unflappable. No matter what happened, what broke down, maybe a guy slipped through, if he got his bell rung, he never said anything. He just took the next play and ran it. And he ran a really tight ship.
Yep.
He was, for a sophomore to come in and do what he did, it's pretty amazing. And don't think it was lost on us. We knew it. We talk about it. He wasn't handed anything by Coach Mack. He fought for the job. He earned the job. And he played beyond probably most of our expectations.
Especially after that blue-white scrimmage. That blue-white scrimmage, boy, we were talking about being 6-4, maybe 7-3.
Right.
But I gotta tell you, Lights may downplay it, but he was kind of like that glue.
Yeah.
And you know what? He had a great presence. He had a great demeanor. Again, he never got excited. He never got down. He just kind of did his job, and he was very professional about it. But I can tell you, he took some I remember distinctly the championship game. I gotta tell you, I think it was the first series of offense. If not, it was the first or second series of offense. He got his bell rung, and it was quite a shot.
He didn't know where he was.
He did not miss a beat.
And Tim, you mentioned how well he did as a sophomore. And I really go back to the coaches because so many Ansonia football players have played as sophomores. Isn't it always the case in a lot of other programs? And that just says a lot about Coach Sponheimer, Coach Hunt, Coach McAllister, Coach Lisi, Coach Delavopi, and Coach Brockett today and his staff, and Coach Stanley, who coached a lot of kids over the years. That really says a lot of just how well these guys prepare you guys to go out there every game and be the best you could be.
That is true. I can tell you, as a kid, I brought up earlier, I remember Joey Potter coming in. I believe he spelled Sandy. I remember Tank McNamara coming in and spelling the quarterback. I'm sure they were nervous, but these guys stepped up and performed. It's just we're lucky in that regard, and I think you're right. The common denominator there is the coaching staff, just well prepared, and everyone was ready to take the moment. And we're really lucky in that regard.
Right.
What it is, it's the confidence they instill in us. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can tell you that you guys could probably think of 10 other examples of people stepping up and taking over, and the team not missing a beat.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about the championship game because, Earl, correct me if I'm wrong. I think going into that game, you guys had a good idea that if you won that game, you would be number one. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. Yeah. We had a chance because the night before, East Catholic beat Hand.
Yeah.
So we knew if we go out there and win, that we're going to end up being number one. And when you walked into that locker room Saturday morning, you knew nobody was beating us that day. You could just see the look, the feel in the air, the look on the player's face. Everybody was focused. Nobody was, we normally didn't horse around in our locker room anyway. We would, everybody was focused. They knew what their job was, and guys, we're going to win today. It was just, we knew it. You could feel it in the air, the look on everybody's face. Everybody was focused, knew exactly what the job at hand was. If we win the game, we're going to be number one. Timmy Ahern's old friend, God rest his soul, Jim Hebert, the referee, made a holding call in that Hand game, and he always used to call Timmy for holding. So that's Timmy's buddy there.
So John, let me ask you, how important was it for you going into that game and finishing number one in the state? I mean, that was the only thing left for you guys to accomplish at this point. You had accomplished everything else, won the Naugatuck Valley League, made all Valley, all state, won a couple championships, finally beat Naugatuck. But that was the one thing that had never happened in the history of that program, was finishing number one. So how important was it for you?
It was really important. Just to set the stage, we were at the KL Club on that Friday night when Hand got beat by East Catholic. And as soon as the word came down, Willis Green said, okay, all you DLs need to go home and get some rest for tomorrow because we have a big game. So yeah, it was important, and there was a lot of pressure. And playing Stanford Catholic, those Catholic schools, they have the recruiting aspect. And when we took the field, they were some pretty big dudes that we were playing, and quite frankly, they were really intimidating when they took the field. But we were focused, and John Deegan set the tone when he was practicing punts at the beginning of the game, and punted and hit one of their kids on the head. So they got all bent out of shape and got all hyped up, and we went out and we played. I don't know if you can play a flawless game, but we were pretty close to flawless that day, and we all protected lights. Got his bell rung.
For the most part.
We would show him where he needed to go that day, back to the huddle,
Remember that?
So, he did what he needed to do, even though he had a headache. And back then, there were no tents on the side.
Yeah.
So, as long as we were able to keep him on the field, we were in pretty good shape.
And we can't forget the fact that Derek Evans must have webbed feet. He went through a quagmire, the likes of which I've never seen anybody do. It didn't seem to bother him that he was stepping in 3 inches of mud each step, but he plowed. He was phenomenal.
He was great.
Phenomenal. It was incredible yardage he got in that quagmire.
Yeah,
34, 35 dive.
Right. So tell me, guys, what was the game was pretty much over early fourth quarter, probably late third quarter, but what was the feeling like when the final seconds were ticking off? You guys are taking a knee. You just know that you just finished 11-0 and you're going to be number one in the state. Each one of you could tell me and take as much time as you want.
I was just relieved. I mean, I can't say that we had a tremendous amount of pressure to put us in that position, but you put it on yourself. And maybe it was more so we were afraid of losing. That just wasn't going to be a part of it. And to John's and Jeff's point, I mean, honest to goodness, and Earl's as well, the minute we hit the locker room that morning, honest to goodness, the vibe was so different that it was incredible. It was like a business-like atmosphere. Everybody was locked in. There was no, screwballing around. There's no talking smack. It was all locked in. Pack your, shoulder pads and helmet. Get on the bus and let's go. It was phenomenal. So when it was over, I think it happened so quickly, and we did it so decisively that we all kind of looked around and said, "That was it."
That was it.
It was relief, and believe it, in a couple minutes that we were pumped. But at when the horn blew, I'm not sure exactly how we felt at that point.
Yeah. I mean, and we had there was like Timmy said, there was no pressure on us, but after, you affected just a whole program and the whole city. You just won the state championship. You knew you were going to be number one after that. And we were going to be the first number one. And then the whole town you did this like all our wins was for the whole town. That was you couldn't get any higher than that. And everybody loves Ansonia football now, but we were right at the top because nobody has ever done that before. And they didn't know how to react. We didn't even know how to react. Like Timmy said, it happened so fast. It was over with so fast. I mean, we're running off the field and the St. Joe's kids are there yelling to them that they're number one, they're number one. No, pal. We just put a good old-fashioned ass whipping on Stanford Catholic.
And they were a good team, by the way.
And they were, they come from the FCAC and they had played Greenwich the week before, and I believe they beat Greenwich. And so we're facing a very good team. They had 7 guys on the team that were Division I players. And like, John and Timmy said, they were big, but we were focused. We were focused from 8 o'clock in the morning. When we got in that field house, we were focused, and nobody could beat us that day.
Mike, I'll go and then we'll let John go. Timmy, if you remember that the morning of the game, well, Glennie was my ride because he was my neighbor, obviously, and he was my ride to the game. And we're driving around. Now he probably picked me up. Glennie was never on time, not for games or anything, but as far as other stuff, he picked me up probably 2 hours early that day. Yeah. And we're driving around. And if Timmy, if you remember, somehow near Timmy's house there was a Murray Street, or it would have turned out to be the locker room cafe over there. 2 cars met. It was Glenny's car and Timmy's car. They're going to the game, and just the look and getting out of the car and say, like Earl said, we weren't getting beat that day by anybody. And like the guy said, I had a concussion, so after the game, the only thing I don't remember. I know I lost my helmet. I don't know where it was. John came in and calling a play near the end of the game, and I asked him, where am I going? I thought he was the quarterback. I didn't know what was going on.
You lined up with the running backs.
I did. I know what I was doing, Mike. But one thing I do remember, and this again shows the kind of people that we were surrounded with. I got back to the locker room. Obviously, I was thrown up. I didn't know where I was, what's going on. And this guy just won a state title, knows it's probably his last game. And Willie Green brought me to the hospital, and who was with me in the front seat of the truck was Coach Mack.
Yeah.
Took his time to take me to the hospital with the concussion was Willie Green, Jeff Capola, and Coach Mack. And that just shows you how lucky we are to play for this program and how lucky these kids are to play for it. It's the I don't even care about state titles or wins or anything. It's the best program in the state of Connecticut. Being around and growing up and being in
Great coaches.
It's absolutely, and we've been lucky for 50 years of the the coaches and just the the surroundings of the people that are involved.
Yeah. And John, what was John, he just mentioned Coach McAllister. That had to be special for you guys as well, that you were his last team and you finished number one in the state, because you always have that bond with him that will never change. You guys will always be his last team and his first number one.
Yeah, Mike, we didn't know that at the time. It was I think the following week in school, the team was announced to gather in the science wing of the high school, and that's when Coach Mack said that was his last year. So it was that was really. I mean, we were surprised that went down that way, but being a little bit selfish, we were also happy that we were the class that he was able to go out on a high like that.
Yeah.
So, guys, let me ask you, this Thursday, another special moment's going to happen. It's the 40th anniversary of that team, which is just hard to believe. I mean, it really is. You guys are going to get to be introduced on that field that day. And Ansonia and Naugatuck is always a big Thanksgiving rivalry. Both teams are undefeated right now. So that's going to be a lot of juice that day. But you guys getting to walk on that field again 40 years later and kind of reminisce, that has to be a wonderful feeling as well. So just talk about what that is going to be like for you guys.
It's gonna be a lot of fun, right? It may be a bit emotional, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to see as many folks as there's a lot of guys we haven't seen in a while, and it's always great getting back together and saying hello and catching up and seeing who's doing what and how things are going. And I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I mean, Earl, what do you think about it? Because again, you've been associated with Ansonia football as a player and a coach for a long time, so this is nothing new for you being on, but getting to walk out there and kind of get to relive what you guys did as athletes and football players, that has to be extra special for you. This
Yeah, year. I think it's great. It's great that they're doing this for us. It's something I believe the team deserves. But it's going to be nice seeing some of the other guys that you haven't seen in years. I mean, even though I still see Lights and Timmy and John, I love seeing them guys, but, it'll be nice seeing some of the guys that we haven't seen in 5, 6, 10, 15 years. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Right. So, guys, I want to thank you. This was a lot of fun for me, and just seeing you guys as a young kid. I mean, I was very young, but I still remember that 83 team. I mean, it's just you guys set the bar for, future Ansonia football teams to strive for being the best they could be. And I mean, just like the teams before you guys did as well. And I just really say to myself and, to you guys as well, is that program just seems to always have that special bond with its players, its athletes, the fans. There's like a camaraderie and a family that goes that comes with it. And you guys have kind of, demonstrated that over the years. You guys are still close to this day. You're not just former Ansonia football players, you're friends forever. And I mean, that really just says a lot. But it all really started with that Ansonia football program. I really believe that program, it wasn't just about the wins. It really set up a family there that has lasted for over 50 years now.
And Mike, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that it goes back a lot longer than that, right?
Yeah.
There were guys that we grew up idolizing that we still, see to this day. And I think we're incredibly fortunate to have the leaders in front of us to emulate and to, aspire to be almost as good as. They carried us along. But I mean, I can tell you, my father can fill the hour talking about the guys during his era and the era before the Roger Goodsons of the world, who were phenomenal athletes, right? Again, I said it earlier, we're standing on the shoulders of some tremendous Ansonia High School Charger athletes, or back then the Lavender Charger.
Yeah.
Tremendous people. We are absolutely lucky to be where we are, but I got to tell you, it's based on everything that came before us. Just a tremendous tradition of high school winning football that's here.
I wouldn't want to be anyplace else.
Jeff, it looks like your kid wants to go out there and play right now.
Yeah,
He is,
Yeah.
I'm watching him.
Yeah, but I really do.
we're in Seymour though, Mike, so he'll be a Wildcat. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get something going on.
Yeah.
But I really do thank you guys again. I congratulate you on that great championship season, and go celebrate Thursday, because you guys deserve to celebrate again. And like I said, you guys will always be a part of Ansonia football history forever, and that'll never change. So congratulations, and thank you for giving me some time today.
Hey, thank you, Nietzsche.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Keep doing what you're doing. Good job.
Go
Thank you.
Chargers. See you guys Thursday.
Yeah.
See you
All right,
guys.
see you later.
Well, there you have it, folks. We just spent an hour talking about that great 1983 Ansonia football team, and people don't really realize the impact that team had, not only on Ansonia, but high school football in general. This was a team for the ages. It really was. And it had so many great players on it. And you look at the success of the Ansonia program, they've had number ones, I think, 4 other times since then. But it really started with the 1983 team. Ansonia had accomplished everything they possibly could, but they had never been number one in the state. And this group of men went out there. They went into that season with the mindset that they were going to go undefeated, have a state championship, and hopefully be number one. They never let it stand in their way. These guys worked hard every day in practice. They played together as a team. They were friends as well. And that's a big reason why they were so successful. Nobody should ever forget the 1983 Ansonia football team. After all, they were number one in the state, and they will always be champions forever. For Ansonia football, the 1983 team, John Lawler, Earl Stanley, Tim Ahern, and Jeff Capola, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.